Hello, everybody. Welcome. We have made it to the final session of the 2022 Virtual Business Summit. We really appreciate you sticking with us over the last 3 weeks. We've had a lot of great content, and we saved one of our best for last. So we're really excited today to have this panel talking about leadership. Such an important topic for all industries, all individuals, everyone here in our community. And so we've lined up some great panelists to have with us today. Before we get to the panel, we want to thank our sponsors. Thanks to them for making this content free and available to everybody. Because of that, we're able to stream this on Facebook. We can repost on YouTube and also onto our webpage. So all this content over the last 3 weeks is available to you at any time. You can go back and rewatch if you need to. And as well, we'll be using the content in our newsletters and our social media to remind you about all the great things that we've learned over the last 3 weeks. So thank you, everybody. Those sponsors are the City of College Place, the City of Walla Walla, the Blue Zones Project, and the Port of Walla Walla. So thanks to those 4 groups for making sure that this summit was successful and getting out to a lot of folks. Okay, so jumping into today's panel discussion, kind of a unique session compared to our other ones. We have Mary Campbell from the Walla Walla Community Council. We have Norma Hernandez, who works at the Health Center and is also the mayor of the City of College Place. And we have Medina with the Blue Mountain Community Foundation. Cole, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Great, thanks, Kyle. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be on the panel. I'm really looking forward to talking about this because this is an area where actually I feel like a little bit of a fraud because I don't have any sort of degree in leadership. I haven't formally studied leadership, and I'll explain that a little bit as I introduce myself, my form of leadership. So to get ready for this, I just poked around online a little bit. I thought, I've never actually looked up the definition of leadership. What's the definition? So I looked it up, and it's what you might expect. It doesn't really say much. It's just kind of generic words. But I eventually found my way to a little article that I liked. I'm going to read just the first part of it because I think it frames the idea of leadership really well. And it's actually an article that was first published in 1961 by a guy named W.C.H. Prentice. I don't know anything about this person, but I found this online. Called Understanding Leadership. And forgive me, it's from 1961, so maybe some of the language is a little older, like everything is a reference to man, not woman. But I'm going to read it. And I don't usually read stuff, but I think this is good. Understanding Leadership. Attempts to analyze leadership tend to fail because the would-be analyst misconceives his task. Usually does not study leadership at all. Instead, he studies popularity, power, showmanship, or wisdom in long-range planning. Some leaders have these things, but they are not of the essence of leadership. Leadership is the accomplishment of a goal through the direction of human assistance. Way to put it. The man who successfully marshals his human collaborators to achieve particular ends is a leader, or a woman who does that. A great leader is one who can do so day after day, year after year, in a wide variety of circumstances. He may not possess or display power, force, or threat of harm may never enter into his dealings. He may not be popular. His followers may never do what he wishes out of love or admiration. He may not ever be a colorful person. He may never use memorable devices to dramatize the purposes of his group or to focus attention on his leadership. As for the important matter of setting goals, he may actually be a man of little influence or even of little skill. As a leader, he may merely carry out the plans of others. His unique achievement is a human and social one, which stems from his understanding of his fellow workers, the relationship of their individual goals, and the group goal that he must carry out. It's not hard to state in a few words what successful leaders do that makes them effective, like we know it when we see it, but it is much harder to tease out the components that determine their success. And so my fellow panel members, I think our job today is to try to tease out the components that determine success. So I hope you guys don't take issue with what I read. I thought it was interesting. And Kyle had asked us all to take 5 minutes to just kind of introduce ourselves and talk about our style of leadership. Since I've been yammering already, maybe I'll turn over to one of you and I can come back and introduce myself a little more later. So, Norma or Mary, would you like to go?
Sure, Mary, let's hear from you next.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Campbell, and I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Community Council. Our mission is to provide a trusted gathering place where people engage in dialogue, inquiry, and advocacy to build a more vibrant region for everyone. And our region includes the Mill Freewater area and all of Walwall and Columbia County, kind of a natural economic region. I kind of chuckled when Kyle sent me an email saying that I had a unique style of leadership, basically because we convene people and let them collaboratively work on solving issues. I will say Kyle knows my style firsthand because he's graciously answered my emails and calls when we've asked him to get involved with projects, and I do say plural projects. It's wonderful having his wisdom at the table. I think of myself as a convener, connector, facilitator. My background kind of naturally led me there. I'm a public service attorney by trade. I was an assistant attorney general for the state of Washington, advising WSU for 4 years while my husband left farming and went into architecture. And then we went to Portland where I advised different state agencies for the state of Oregon Department of Justice. At WSU, I served as in-house general counsel, basically had a variety of issues. And then when I went to Oregon, the same thing. Served as general counsel for a number of different state agencies. I valued that experience, and I quickly found that bringing people together really made a difference. And I often describe my work in the legal field as facilitating communication, not practicing law. I saw the importance of listening to people. Often people are at odds with state agencies, whether they be regulatory or otherwise, have lots of complaints, and if they've gotten involved with them and the state is involved, then there's some anxious feelings, I'll just put it that way. I would try to meet with either the individual or their counsel, legal counsel, and we find common ground. So my client ultimately to me was the residents of each state. And so I would look for common ground and hear from both perspectives and bring them together once it was safe to do so. I'll just say that, not always was it, until they could be heard and felt listened to. And then they were part of crafting the solution. All I did is bring them together and help them find a way forward based on what they could agree upon, so to speak, on the facts. Really exciting work, I will tell you, and it's always a more successful solution if they've helped craft it, everyone involved. I'll share a story that I share a lot when people ask me about my background. One of my clients in the state of Oregon was the Oregon Health Division. They happened to do the permitting for public parks. And there was a hotel that was being renovated, an old hotel that was being renovated. It had been purchased by a chain hotel system whose legal counsel was in Chicago. I think that may have been the home base for the hotel firm. And they came at, let's put it this way. The construction had already begun. They had the pool design. It hadn't received a permit from my client. And so the city of Portland was holding up the permit to continue construction. They actually issued a stop order. So needless to say, some feelings were very anxious and not many people were happy in that situation. So I just asked everyone to come to our office, and I asked my client to bring the drawings they had, and I asked the city of Portland to bring the drawings they had. I asked the contractor and the sub to come to our office, and they brought their legal counsel out of Chicago. And I just said, what I'd like to do is sit down with the drawings and let's figure a solution. And so everybody came, and about 15 of us in the room, and I just asked people, I stood back and just said, get down on that drawing, stand there and draw together and figure out a solution for this, because it wasn't just a pool that they had, or not existing pool, existing building that they wanted to put a pool into the building like on the 5th floor or something. So there were columns and everything in the middle of the pool that had been designed. And they worked it out in the attorneys that came out from Chicago, I still laugh. We're like, we've never seen this happen before. And I just think it's the nature of what we do, and it's how we bring people together, we as a community, as a region, and I think we're really successful about it. And that's kind of one of those really hands-on examples that I love to give because it's real. So as a connector, we are always connecting people and organizations and entities. We believe that networking and creating that sense of belonging amongst each other is key to building a more vibrant and sustainable community. When we know each other, we're more likely to reach out and say, hey, I was thinking about this. What do you think about it? Or I heard you're doing this. Could I work with you on that project? So we really love connecting people. And we'll find that people are more likely to say yes when you ask them to join you in a project if they know you a little bit, or if they know someone you know, kind of use that person as an ambassador for you. So we are always connecting people so they can collaborate, cross-pollinate on projects, even if it's sometimes just an email to begin with. We frequently are introducing people just via an email. So someone, 2 emails today, we're asking, do I have ideas about people who might be able to help on this project? It's not one of ours. And so we just connect them because we are in the envious position of getting to know a lot of people really quickly based on our work. The other key to all of this is always striving to bring more people to the table and making sure the table is comfortable for everyone and how you meet and things like that. We're constantly expanding our sphere. I think that's really important for decision making, is that you bring different voices and different perspectives to the table, and you can't do that unless everyone's comfortable at the table. And so those perspectives are critical to the success of any project in my mind and in our mind as community council. As a convener, this requires transparency. Tell people what you want and what you're asking of them when they come, when you ask them, invite them to any event, whether it be public, small, or whatever. What's your goal? Why are you asking them there? And are you really going to listen to their perspective? It doesn't mean you all have to agree, but they need to be heard, whatever perspective they bring, because that's why you're bringing them. So it's really important for everybody to have that opportunity to share their perspective. And one other requirement of that convening is that you create a safe space, what we call a safe space. So we tackle topics that are tough, like affordable housing, improving food security. And people don't always agree on how we get to solutions, but we learn together, we work together, and we make it clear and maintain this safe space so that everyone's comfortable sharing their viewpoint, even though people might not agree. It's really this listening and learning together that really makes a difference. And then as a facilitator, I always laugh and say, it's making sure the ground rules are enforced so that that safe space is created, whether it's 7 people, 50 people, 60 people, 300 people, whatever space we've created, that's what's important to us, is that everyone feels heard and is comfortable joining us. And I'll just say it's a constant goal of ours to bring more people to the table and to eliminate barriers. I think that's all I'll say for now. If people want examples of what we've done, I'm happy to get those.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Before we continue on to Mayor Hernandez, I realize I forgot to tell people, if you have a question for our panelists, we would like you to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You can click that and type in a question. If you are watching on Facebook, we're monitoring that live as well. So you can ask a question in the comments on the Facebook live stream, and we will get the questions directed to the panel. So go ahead and ask those now. We'll build up a queue of questions and see how many we can get through during this webinar. Okay, Mayor Hernandez, please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me here. So I'm Norma Hernandez. I play dual roles. I'm the executive director of the Health Center in Walla Walla, which is a school-based health clinic in Walla Walla Public Schools. Our mission is to advance the success of students by addressing their physical, emotional, and social needs. And we provide our services right there where the students are every day. It is a nonprofit, and we are completely independent. We are one of the few completely independent school-based health centers in Washington State. There's only like 4 or 5 of us. I am also the mayor of the City of College Place, a position I have held since 2019 when I was first appointed. to the mayor role, and then last year, November, I was actually elected into the position. And just a side note, we're talking about leadership path, and in that role, it's proud for me to be able to say, first of all, I'm the first elected female mayor in College Place in its 76 years of existence. But I am also the first person of color, that's a Latina, that has been a leader in the city of College Place in 76 years. So I'm pretty proud to have broken that barrier as far as leadership is concerned. My leadership path is different. It's not one that I ever expected to take. If I had to say how I got there, I would say it was more that I was kind of in the wrong place at the right time. It's kind of my leadership style, and if there's an opportunity to do something, I just feel, well, somebody needs to do it, so I'll give it a try. And that's pretty much how my leadership style went. It's not that it's something that I had ambitions for or that I had focused on. Things just kind of popped into place. When you have your eyes and your heart open to opportunities, you see more than you ever thought you could see with that. And this includes, if I have to go back, Kmart, I worked at Kmart. And so leadership started there, where I just started taking opportunities to learn and take different positions and manage and move my way up through management. I come from 23 years of the credit union industry, where I was in executive leadership in the credit union industry in Washington State. I was CEO of a credit union in Seattle, and I became CEO in 2004. And it was not because I, again, worked hard to get, not that I didn't work hard, I did work hard, but I didn't aim for it. The position came up, and it was a credit union. Everybody's saying, well, who's going to do it? Somebody different. Nobody wanted somebody from the outside to come in. But what was fabulous is I only stepped up because I had the support of my peers. And that is where leaders are successful, is because they're not doing it on their own. As Mary said, a leader brings other people into the picture. And so that's where my success comes from, because every place I have been, I've had excellent support system from employees and from boards, and they've allowed me to strengthen my leadership skills and build confidence in myself. As far as the mayor is because, everybody complains about politics, even though I don't consider myself a politician, but we complain. And it finally got to the point where, for me, I got so frustrated what was going on that I just stepped in, because I felt the best place to start affecting change was in public policy. Be part of the decision making that affects the public. And if I could be part of that discussion, why not? I never intended to be the mayor. It just kind of happened and moved up to there. But that's where I came in. And it's kind of, again, I'm going to just go back to, I fell into places and was open to opportunities, rather than letting fear dictate what my decision was going to be. I just took the opportunity and built a strong staff around me.
Okay, yeah, I'm already noticing some really interesting similarities and differences. We'll move on to Cole now for his introduction.
Thank you, Kyle. Nice to hear those stories from your lives, Norma and Mary. I'll try to keep this really short, because I know we want to get to questions and conversation. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I can find the right screen to share. You guys seeing that? Great. Kyle invited me to join the panel because at some point over the past year, I mentioned to him servant leadership and how I at one point figured out in my life that that's how I am, servant leader. So I thought I'd just run through really quick, what is servant leadership? So let's talk about that. So I'm going to start with a very quick summary of my life. I was born in Salt Lake City, but I lived the best part of my childhood here in Walla Walla. But I lived here because my mom's second husband was in the pen. And that's just a sign of how my upbringing was. I had, I guess, what a lot of people might call a broken childhood or a hard childhood. We were poor. My mom was married and divorced 3 times. All 3 guys were just losers of different varieties. The second one was a career criminal. Started in juvenile detention before he was 18 and was in and out of prison his whole life. And after he got out of prison here, we moved back to Salt Lake City. Within a month, got in a fight at a bar and shot a guy and killed him. And my mom divorced. And my point is just that I'm just a normal person, grew up in kind of a disadvantaged life. But what have I done with my life? A lot of what I've done is because of servant leadership. Here's a quick step through my life. I actually didn't graduate from high school. I left high school early to go to a really amazing school in Mexico, called Hernandez College in the USA. There are 15 or so of these around the world now. I think about 100 students every year to this school in Mexico, so I was super lucky to be able to go. Then I went to Carleton College and got a BA in environmental policy. I was in Peace Corps for 2 years in Medina, which is, I'm usually asking people to raise their hand if they've heard of it, but I did on the webinar. It's in West Africa. And then I got lucky again and got accepted to Stanford Law School. Spent 3 years there. After that, I was an attorney at a big prestigious law firm in Seattle called Foster Government Shop, now called Foster Government. And I didn't last long there, as I figured I would. I'm not really a corporate law firm guy. I took it up, and I wanted to be in my community, actually doing work in my community and helping my community see the results. And I love nonprofits. I was doing nonprofit work at Foster Government. So I left, and I took a really huge pay cut to go be the first executive director of West Alabama. I was there for many years, and then I left there to go run the Consent Community Foundation. I was there for many years. During that time, when we lived on Neighbors Island for those years, I got to be elected to city council twice on Neighbors Island, and got to serve as the mayor for a couple of years, which is real on. And then I had an opportunity to come back to my hometown and take the helm here as the CEO of the Blue Mountain Community Foundation about a year ago. Here at the foundation, I like to refer to it as a charitable bank. We are like the community's charitable bank. We're a place for people and organizations to put money that they want to use to make grants and scholarships out in the community. So we manage lots of money for the community, make lots of grants and scholarships out to support kids going to school and all the other nonprofits. In a nutshell, that's what we do. Leadership in my life. All those stops in my life I just mentioned, I've ended up being a leader in various capacities. I didn't realize it at the time, but as I started looking back on my life, I'm like, oh, wow, I guess that's leadership. You don't really know it when you're in it, but later you're like, oh, that's leadership. I never set out to lead anything. I just tried to make the place I was at better than my own. So what is servant leadership? Here's the definition. Servant leader shares power, puts the needs of others first, and helps people develop and perform as highly as possible. There's some echoes of this in what we just heard Norma and Mary talk about. Now here is the first definition of servant leadership. Robert Greenlee wrote this little kind of booklet article called "The Servant as Leader" in 1970. He coined this term, at least he's credited with coining this term. The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings them to aspire to be. I can read the whole thing. The leader first and servant first are two extreme types. Between them are shadings and blends that are part of the variety. So I'm not a perfect servant leader. I don't claim to be, but on the continuum of servant leader versus leader first, I'm very much the leader myself. Robert identified 10 main characteristics of servant leaders. Here they are. I won't read them all. Folks, a second to read them. I think you heard echoes of this again in what Norma and Mary were saying. Here's another definition from some other folks. Servant leaders are individuals of character, but people first, are skilled communicators, are compassionate collaborators, use foresight, are systems thinkers, and exercise moral authority. Those are the definitions of servant leadership. Here's me. If anyone wants to contact me, is listening to this. I'll stop sharing my screen in a second. And to summarize what servant leadership really means to me, I just gave you the definitions and some characteristics. What does it really mean? To me, a servant leader is a person who looks around whatever group they are thinking about at that time, whether that group is their family or their staff, fellow staff members in their office, or the city council that Norma's trying to work with, or Mary, that huge group of people that you've gotten together in some room to talk about an issue, or it's your whole community, whatever group you're thinking about. The servant leader approaches that group with this perspective. They want to help that group figure out what that group wants to do. Not tell them what they want to do, but help them figure out what they want to do. And then help them actually do it. That's really how I approached everything in my life. And that's the kind of leader I've been in all those spots. So that's servant leadership.
All right, thank you, Cole. So again, we've already seen some very interesting similarities and some very interesting differences in the approach to leadership, the experience of our panelists here. We're going to go ahead and open it up for your questions. Again, please use the Q&A feature or the comment section if you're watching on Facebook. The first question that we're going to ask, and I can maybe lead off here with a little bit of experience from my past. I was planning, like a couple of folks on this panel, to go to law school. And so I studied political science in college, and that was my path. I was getting ready to choose a law school. I had a couple of options, and at that time, my younger sister, who was in high school, was diagnosed with cancer. And it became clear that my mom was going to need a little bit of help. She had to take my sister down to Salt Lake City, birthplace of Cole, for treatment. And so we wanted to stay close so that we could help out with that process. And it meant that instead I went to grad school to get an MBA. And so my whole career plan was kind of turned on its head. And thankfully so, because it led me to a path where I started in the nonprofit world. For me, the nonprofit world is wonderful because it's a place that can be very innovative, where we bring, like Mary said, a lot of people together at one table to talk about problems, look for solutions, find ways to help people. And again, so I worked for the American Cancer Society for about 3 years in government relations. And then I ended up at the Chamber of Commerce in Twin Falls, Idaho. And the Chamber ran a couple of leadership programs. And so I was asked to go through as a new employee of the Chamber. I hadn't thought a whole lot about leadership, how to develop leadership, or different theories and philosophies on leadership, until we started going around meeting leaders in different industries in the communities, hearing from them about the state of their industry, the business or organization that they led. And what I noticed was there were people from all different walks of life doing all different things. And what was really interesting to me is that they were kind of like me. They started on one career path and ended up in a very different place. A couple of examples. We had an opera singer, a trained opera singer, who now ran a healthcare-related nonprofit. Someone who worked as a police officer, who now owned and managed a couple of car dealerships. We had farmers who were in politics, small business owners from all walks of life, but people from nursing who left that field and opened up their own small business. We had people from the entertainment industry who were semi-retired but working as either running a nonprofit or a small business. And it kind of blew my mind that these people would give up the thing that they went to college specifically to do in pursuit of another career. And it all had to do with leadership. It felt like they were being called into these different areas. And so that made me think a little more proactively about how I could develop some leadership skills. And So that is my first question to the panel. At what point in your career did you proactively seek out leadership development for yourself? And let's go ahead and start with Mary on this one.
My answer is never. I was lucky to be surrounded by people who cared deeply about the world, starting with my parents and siblings, older siblings, I'm the youngest of four. But also even everywhere I went, I too went to Carleton College, small world, just a number of years earlier than Cole. Pretty much everywhere I went, I met people who inspired me and they became friends and, you know, didn't even recognize them as mentors at the time, but just people who had a huge impact in my life. Yeah, so.
Okay, Norma, what about you?
You know, mine is, I have an interest. When I finally decided, I remember it clearly. It was in 2008, and I'll tell you why I know it was in 2008. As I mentioned, I was CEO of a credit union in Seattle that I became in 2004. And in 2007, as a CEO, I started seeing that in Seattle, that's where we were at the time, that there were people going unbanked. It was also the time of predatory lending with check cashing places and payday loans. They were more than, you know, every Starbucks and McDonald's. And I was seeing that the victims, because that's what they were, they weren't customers, they were victims of these businesses, generally fell into the low income, the lower educated, and people of color, immigrants, minorities. And so I wanted to be part of finding a solution of how to address those needs, to take away their power from sucking money out of these people who were had the least amount of money. And so in 2007, I started reaching out and doing some research to figure out how can we serve this community. And coincidentally, at the same time, there was a foundation in Seattle that was actually working on the same project, and we got connected to somebody when I had mentioned what I was doing, and they knew what they were doing. So we came together to figure out the solution together. And it took a little bit over 2 years, but it didn't end up involving 11 regional organizations, from nonprofits, billion-dollar financial institutions, the cities, the counties, and philanthropy to get this program going. And we were just getting ready to open. Well, we were going to be opening in 2009, the grand opening of the credit union that was spent 3 years, becoming Washington's first community development credit union and low-income credit union designation. Today, there's dozens of them, but we were the first back in 2008 when we became that. And so we were the first in Washington to show that serving marginalized societies and their everyday working person is not just it can be profitable, but it's necessary, right? It's not big profits. They're not going to become billion-dollar institutions, but it's necessary. However, in 2008, we had gotten to a point where we had raised $10 million. And when I say we, it was when we came together with partners. And one of the investors said to those of us, the committee that was working together to do this, that they were uncomfortable with me being the CEO of the next step of the credit union. And the word was, I wasn't executive enough. And so being that I was a CEO from 2004 to 2008, and then I was told this credit union that I created, this program that I created, that they want somebody else to lead it. And, you know, while it was hurtful because I didn't have high education at the time, I didn't have a degree at the time. What I had was life skills, on-the-job learning, and the determination to do something in my community. But for some people, they wanted that piece of paper. That's what they wanted. So I actually stepped down from my position because it was that important for me to get this mission going for this credit union and to serve this community that I willingly stepped down from my position, and they hired they hired someone who actually was not qualified, but she had a degree. And that is when I was most frustrated. And when I saw who they hired, that's when I decided I need to do something to become a stronger leader. I need to be able to, I know the confidence in myself and what I can do, but I also need to be able to project that to other people who, when they look at me, don't see a leader. So that's when I decided to take my leadership and started looking for mentoring and started taking, I went to school, right? And then I just sought out the strongest mentors. And then again, once again, I took every opportunity to learn from people that I highly respected and hope to be like one day.
All right, thank you. And Cole, you kind of already mentioned a little bit about discovering servant leadership, but at what point in your career would you say you really started proactively trying to develop yourself as a leader?
My answer is short. It's the same as Mary's. Never. I mean, never in any sort of proactive way. I've never formally studied leadership, but just by my nature, as I've already said, I've always tried to help work with people to make things better wherever I am. It turns out that's leadership. So I think through the practice of always doing that and messing crap up and learning along the way, I've probably just learned a whole lot about leadership just by trying to study. I've never formal.
All right, so one really strong theme I'm hearing there is look for a mentor. Find someone who you think is a good leader, work with them, ask them for a little bit of coaching or help, find ways that you can utilize the talents that you already have to help other people. Kind of goes along with very few people who become great leaders are just born that way. They develop it through, reaching out, trying to develop their talents and strengths, and then utilizing those strengths to help other people or work towards solving some kind of a problem. Okay, so moving on to our next question. We end up with a lot of young folks in the community who are newer in their careers, not sure what the next steps might be. And this question is for them. How can I seek out leadership opportunities without a lot of prior experience? Norma, what do you think about that one?
I think because of my background and where I came from and how I needed opportunities in order to learn and have to become who I am today, I would advise to seek out somebody in the industry or even just in the community that you highly respect and you want to learn a little bit, and just go ask them. Ask them, like I said, a mentor, or can I shadow you? Can you meet me for coffee every once in a while? It might be embarrassing and it might be hard because you don't know this person, but you really would love to learn from them. And so I would say just, get the gumption up and go ask.
All right, Cole, what do you think about this one?
You mentioned questions for younger folks. So if it's younger folks who are in school, for instance, like in high school or college, I did, when I was in school in various colleges, I volunteered my time a lot and worked on the school newspaper, for instance, or helped out on a sports team, or I don't even remember all the big, clubs I volunteered to be part of and like help me stuff with. So just go and volunteer. If you're in school, just raise your hand and go volunteer at a club or go volunteer at Beyond helping the yearbook or whatever it is. And like being a section editor in your local, your school newspaper, that's leadership. You're leading that section. There it is, leadership. Just start doing it. Just start doing things and be in a position where you're helping to get stuff done. It's really getting stuff done is leadership. And you'll get better at it just through exercising that way. If you're not in school, go volunteer at nonprofits. Nonprofits are always looking for volunteers to come in and provide leadership in various ways. Or, if you have kids, go volunteer with your kids' soccer team and, help be an assistant coach. That's leadership. I guess the theme of my leadership, and what I always tell people is, so do something.
Okay, and Mary, what's your perspective on this question?
So I echo what both Norma and Cole have said. I would say find someone who interests you, either because of what they do or the person they are, and if it's combined with an interest you're interested in, a topic, whether it's their career or just the person, that's who you're going to be most comfortable with. And I think that's really important for you to build a relationship. And I don't know a soul who, if you walked up to them as a stranger, but you heard of them or seen them in some scenario, whether they were owner of a small business and you just loved them because they had a great customer service, whatever, walk up to them and say, you know what, I really like what you do. Could we just have a cup of tea? Or could I just sit and visit with you? And it will build from there. I mean, you don't need to make it this big, scary thing. You don't have to ask them for some big ask. They'll be flattered. I'll tell you, they really will. And if they're not, then they're schmucks. Let's just leave it at that.
Kyle, can I just say something else?
Yes.
Excuse me. I was thinking about, well, when Cole was speaking, it resonated. So it's funny because it was resonating with me, what he was saying. And I reflect back on who I was as a child. And I think back, well, you know, now that I think about it, I did try to get on student council in elementary school, right? But there was barriers in the way for that. But I was on the yearbook staff. I did read the student life section of the newspaper. I did not have the grace to be a dancer. I was the manager of the dance team, right? So I kind of made sure that they were good to go, and that all the dancers had what they needed. So Cole was right. Just, you know, if you're in that young age, that bracket, just get involved. And even if it's something that's not you, like I said, I never have the grace to be a dancer, but I could sure be their manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for young people too that there are lots of service clubs and service opportunities. As a student, based on your interest, you might gravitate towards certain things. And overwhelmingly, what we heard here was just do it. Just jump in, give it a shot, and see what you can do. Our next question is an interesting one. Who are some thought leaders in this arena I should be following? You know, we live in a digital age where the people who you all said you're not, which is someone who studies leadership and researches leadership, but we have really quick access to those kinds of people and the work that they do. So who's somebody maybe that would be worth a follow, or a book or an article that you've read that might be worth seeking out? And let's start with Cole on this one.
Sure. Well, yeah, because I don't formally study leadership, or I haven't done much. I don't follow people. I don't follow folks who write about or talk about leadership. But over the years, I have read a few things. Peter Drucker has written a bunch of books about leadership and management. Drucker, like Trucker. He's got a great book specifically about nonprofit management. Most of this stuff is about for-profit business management. Robert Greenleaf, if you like what you heard me say about servant leadership, buy Robert Greenleaf's little booklet, A Servant as Leader, on Amazon. It's worth it. It's pretty quick. And right here in town, there's a guy named David Mitchell, and he actually he was on one of these. Like, he started off with Sun, right? If you're wrong, Kyle.
So he spoke last year, the year before, at the summit, but he was already booked by Blue Zones for their Connect Summit. So this week he kicked off their summit.
Right. Well, he does a bunch of kind of leadership training for people and businesses, and it's all based on personality typing. We developed a personality typing system. You can read about it in a book by Amazon called The Power of Understanding People. So I wanted to go there to make this point. If you go back to what I read at the start of this, that guy's view of leadership is that it's really about understanding what makes people tick and then figuring out how to help them tick and get them into the right places to work for them. It's really about people management. People management is understanding people. I have found that personality typing systems are really helpful. If you're someone who's listening to this and you've never done a Myers-Briggs test, or your office hasn't done that, or you haven't done David Mitchell's test, do it, because people are really different. Like, you look around your office and you think, oh, we're all the same. They're all like me. We all react the same way. They don't. And if you understand how different people are hardwired to react in different ways to the situations, you can be a much better leader.
All right, Mary, same question.
So I am always interested in how we gather and how we make everyone comfortable and how we make our gatherings open to all and open to hearing every perspective. So one of my favorite books is Priya, P-R-I-Y-A, Parker, and it's called The Art of Gathering. And you can Google The Art of Gathering, you'll find she has a website and this book. And it's just a really powerful book that I think could inform all of us, everything from a birthday party to an office party. It's just talking about the art of gathering and how we gather and why we gather and making sure we include everyone or making sure that we make it welcoming and things like that. So I look a lot at things like that.
Okay, Norma, any thought leaders that you follow or would recommend?
I'm going to agree with Cole on Dave Mitchell. I'm a romantic leader, according to Dave, right? And I lead from my heart, and I make decisions from my heart, which makes complete sense to me as to all the decisions that I end up making. It's not because I calculate the thought. It's like, what feels right to me? What's for the best of the people? What's the best of my staff, right? But Dave Mitchell is great. So his books are great. Finding out what kind of leader you are, so you can strengthen and understand how you think, but then also understand how other people think. That it ends a lot of conflict for you when you're interacting. But that being said, I can't say I follow somebody. What I do is I watch who I don't want to be. To be honest, I watch, whether it's news and social media, entertainment. I see how people are behaving, what they're saying, how they're treating people, and I see them and it's like, I don't want to be that person, or I hope I don't look like that person. I hope I don't sound like that person. So that really is more my guide as who I don't want to be as opposed to who I want to try to be.
Excellent. And I'm really glad that you both have talked a little bit about Dave Mitchell, because I actually have a couple of copies of his book, The Power of Understanding People. And so the first two people who comment on this Facebook post who want those will give you a copy of that book. And just to plug kind of what Cole said about those personality tests, you mentioned the Myers-Briggs. Dave Mitchell will actually walk you through one when you read this book. And there's also a couple of other ones like the DISC assessment, DISC. When I first went through that leadership program I talked about, they did the DISC assessment, and it was scary how accurate that was. And it caused me a lot of self-reflection to think about, why do I think about problems in a certain way? How do I engage with other people? And it really clicked for me, like, oh, okay, I do this because this is kind of how I think through problems. And it also explained a lot about other people as well. And it really helped me relate to another person's communication style or their decision-making process. Because to me, I want to think things through logically in a list. And, Mayor Hernandez is going to make a decision based on how she feels. And that's foreign to me, but helping me realize that people are doing things different really helps me get on the same page with them and collaborate better. So I highly recommend doing one of those if you haven't already. Emotional intelligence is another one. Strength finder. Really kind of get to know yourself and get to know how other people think about things. So our final question before we have to sign off is really a profound one. What is the best way to start on my own leadership path? And let's start with Mayor Hernandez here.
Oh, goodness. I'm going to go back to just do it, right? Seek out opportunities within your ability, right? So your students, if you can do it in school, if you can do it on the weekend, seek out those things that you ordinarily wouldn't do, and be comfortable with it. Make yourself comfortable with it, because once you get comfortable with it, you actually start feeling that empowerment of, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this thing, right? And I think back to my husband and I, when we were younger, I always told him, I don't want a career I don't want a career. No, thank you. I just want to be at home and just live my life. And, here I am with 2 careers, just because the opportunities came and it's like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at it. So I would say seek out the opportunities, college, even if you're 45 years old and you're ready to start a whole new thing for yourself, just find a way to do it and never say it's too late and that I can't.
Okay, Cole, what do you think?
I think the exact thing that Norma said. I'll just add a couple more words to it. Everything Norma said with find something you're passionate about, or you have some passion for, something you care about. Pick something out in the world you care about and go connect yourself to it. Try to provide some leadership to it or around it. Let's go give it a shot. Oh, and I'll also add, I guess, there are some hard skills that I think are very helpful to leaders that we haven't really talked about. But Norma, you reminded me of something you said about many years ago. I read a book. It's called "Gotta Stop Eating Like This," and it was this book that was just telling you how to run meetings better. It had all these seemed to be very simple rules to follow to make meetings run better. Oh, sorry, Mary, you made it this. That was the book you were talking about. And I have employed those things, but a lot of being a good leader in many circumstances is being able to run good meetings. It's like there's some hard skills involved, like work on how to run meetings, work on your public speaking, because often public speaking moments will come up with your leader, even if it's just in front of your committee or whatever. Work on some hard skills, but one way to work on them is to go find something you care about and just start working on it and use that as an opportunity to work on your hard skills.
Okay, and Mary, and I have to admit that I think Mary's leadership style of collaboration is kind of the scariest one to me. Because she gets all these people together and then she just kind of gives them a little bit of direction and then just lets go. And that is so scary to me, to kind of just relinquish control to the group and trust that they're going to get to the right decision. But you can't argue with the results. Those committees and groups that you put together, they come up with such great work. So that's one thing that I'm working on a little bit more. Delegating a little bit better and trusting in the people that that we're surrounded with here at the chamber.
I love it. That is hysterical, Kyle. I didn't realize that. But thank you for being willing to face the fear and come to our meetings. So I appreciate that. I would echo what Norma and Cole have said, which is find your passion or passions. Follow one of them for a while. And that really will be your genuine, that's what's going to drive you to whatever that is. And I will just say I'm a perfect example. I started out in public service and loved it dearly, but then had this opportunity to help form this organization because I care deeply about community building. And then when our first executive director retired, I was asked to step into this role. So my career really has been just people saying, would you step here? And I've been lucky. And so I would say follow your passion. Yes, it's similar to what I used to do, but it is at a very different scale, as Kyle pointed out. So really, I just follow your passion, because you're going to, that's what's going to drive you. That's, I like Norma, you know, it's really the heart that's going to drive you. And that's, when it gets hard, you'll still be there because you care deeply about whatever it is you've chosen to tackle.
Okay, well, again, thank you all so much for your time. We've come to the end of our hour. I want to remind people, if you want a copy of Dave Mitchell's The Power of Understanding People, it will help you with a little bit of self-discovery, learning about yourself, and helping you identify some of your leadership characteristics, as well as being able to help understand how you relate to the people around you. Please comment there on the Facebook page, and we've got a couple of copies that we're happy to give away. We would also like to thank, again, our sponsors, the City of College Place, the Port of Walla Walla, the Blue Zones Project, and the City of Walla Walla. We now have 10 sessions with wonderful content out there available for you on our Facebook page, soon to be also on our website. And again, we would like to thank Mary, Norma, and Cole today for being with us. Thank you all so much for your time, and we really appreciate the leadership that you provide in the community. So I really feel you mentioned for people to reach out, find a mentor, and talk with them. We got 3 great ones right here, people who are willing to share some of their expertise and life experience with you. So please do that. Reach out if you need any help. Again, thanks everyone. We'll sign off for this year, and we'll see you next year in 2023 for the Business Summit.